Welcome to the news on Enyimba TV. We are reaching you from the commercial city of Aba. First, the headlines. Aba residents stay indoors for #End Bad Governance protests as markets, banks and institutions shut down. IGP puts officers on red alert ahead of second day of protest. Resilience, tear gas, looting, curfew as #End Bad Governance protests hold with boycott in southeast states. Thanks for joining us on the news at this time. I am Mary Ihejirika. Now the news in details. Thousands have taken to the streets in cities nationwide in anti-government protests against the high cost of living in the country, driven by crippling inflation and a devalued currency. Propagated on social media, the nationwide protest against economic hardship started on Thursday, August 1, 2024, and have been scheduled to stretch till August 10 across all states of the Federation as well as the nation's capital, Abuja. The police, military and the Department of State Services had warned against Kenya-style protests. Politicians who surmised that the planned rallies might end up like the EndSARS demonstrations of October 2020 have continued to appeal to youth to shelve the rallies, but the young people have been unfazed. Defiant, they fired out on Thursday morning in different states across the Federation, first in trickles, then they regrouped themselves, enlarged their tents and soldiered on, chanting solidarity songs with placards and banners that had different inscriptions conspicuously emblazoned on them. From Port Harcourt to Portiscom, Ego Square to MKO Abiola Park, and from the iconic Lekki Toll Gate to the eponymous Gani Fawumi Park, which are all symbolic of civil protests. The poured out also from the southern and northern regions of the country, young and old, male and female, religious differences and ethnic affinities temporarily set aside. They bereaved the odds and tabled their demands. In Aba, our correspondent Michael Oni, who monitored the compliance of residents of the state to the protests, reports that though residents of the state didn't participate in the protests, most of them, however, stayed indoors. Major markets in Aba, including Ariaria, Ahiohoro, Eziukwu, among others, had their gates shut. Commercial banks, fast food centers, major inter- and intra-city transport companies, petrol stations, and other business centers in the state also didn't open for business activities, leaving their customers to resort to the available alternatives. A visit to some parts of Aba revealed that no policeman was seen on the road within the city center. According to our correspondent, a detachment of military personnel was sighted at Bata Junction as one of the lanes of the popular Abowore Road leading to the army outpost at Bata Junction was condoned off. Following the declaration of a nationwide protest scheduled for Thursday, August 1, 2024, residents of Umuahia, the Abia State capital, ignored the call to join the protest. Enyimba TV observed that there was no sign of protest as shops remained locked with owners on standby. Government offices were also closed with free flow of traffic as both private car owners and tricycle operators were in full operations. Some residents who spoke to Enyimba TV on the condition of anonymity disclosed that they were not interested in the protest as they did not see what dividends it will yield for the southeast, while also stating that no life in the east is worth the protest. Enyimba TV Umuahia correspondent Kinsley Chibike reports that there was relative calm and peace within the Umuahia metropolis as security personnel and men of the Operation Crush outfit were seen on routine patrol. Now let us share with you what happened across other major cities in Nigeria. Residents of Abuja joined other Nigerians across the nation to protest against economic hardship despite the government's last-minute push to prevent the demonstration. The peaceful protest in Abuja later turned chaotic after police officers fired tear gas indiscriminately at protesters. Protesters in their numbers had shown an order by the Federal Capital Territory which restricted the protest to the MKO Stadium in the city. At the venue, the protesters disagree with the FCT Commissioner of Police, Ben Igwe, over the move to restrict the protests to only inside the stadium. The protesters, however, marched to the Eagle Square, which they initially planned to use to make their voices heard. As they approached the venue, the police fired tear gas at them, creating a wall of tear gas smoke, which prevented the crowd from moving forward. The police also fired tear gas indiscriminately in an attempt to prevent the protesters from accessing the iconic Eagle Square ground in the Three Arms zone. Meanwhile, a group of protesters in about 8 Toyota Coaster buses staged a counter-protest at the National Stadium in Abuja, the venue of the #EndBadGovernance demonstrations. The counter-protesters also in their large number were carrying placards with inscriptions, "We want peace in FCT. FCT is for development. We don't want protests." Meanwhile, the security men on ground formed a formidable barricade to ensure there was no meeting point between the two opposing protesting groups that could lead to fracas and breakdown of law and order. Protesters in their hundreds trooped out in Lagos to protest what they termed the economic hardship of the government. They defied the order of the Lagos High Court, which restricted them to Gani Faremi Freedom Park, Ojota, and Moshood Abiola Peace Park, Ketu. The protesters, who marched from Ikeja to Ojota, accused the police of threats to embark on force for refusing to use the designated park as they continued chanting solidarity slogans. Policemen tear gas defiant #EndBadGovernance protesters at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos. The Lekki toll gate, now symbolic for civil demonstrations following the #EndSARS nationwide protest against police brutality in 2020, was initially deserted on Thursday morning as protesters marched against hunger and hardship in different parts of Nigeria. However, around 11 a.m., protesters emerged at the Lekki toll gate bearing placards with different inscriptions that conveyed their dissatisfaction against the current administration of President Bola Tinubu. The security agents informed the demonstrators, mostly youths, of a court order restricting their gathering to the Gani Faremi Park in Ojota and Peace Park in Ketu, both areas in the Lagos mainland part of the state. The pocket of youth who converged on the toll gate rejected the relocation to Lagos mainland and continued their demonstrations till they were dispersed by police tear gas. In Maiduguri, Borno State, 4 persons said to be staff of Kime filling station around Bolori Junction of the metropolis lost their lives to the protests. As of the time of filing this report, the victims were still in the pool of their blood, even as video of killings were viral on social media. This happened after suspected Boko Haram members infiltrated the protest over the rising cost of living in Borno State. In a statement, Farouk Lawal, Commissioner of Police in Borno, said the commander of the Explosive Ordnance Device EOD Base 13 was swiftly deployed on the scene. Already, police authorities have imposed a 24-hour curfew on the state, citing violence that escalated in the nationwide protest and the bomb blast that took place in Kawuri village of Gunduga local government area of the state, which left 20 people dead and 16 injured less than 24 hours before the commencement of the protest. Similarly, the otherwise peaceful protests against bad governance in the country also turned violent in Kaduna, leaving no fewer than 3 youths dead and many other protesters injured. The demonstrations escalated when tensions fled between protesters and security forces as the protesters attempted to block the road leading to the government house. Spokesperson of the Kaduna State Police Command, ASP Mantia Hassan, accused members of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, also known as Shiite, of turning the peaceful protests violent. The police also say hoodlums had vandalized the offices of the State Traffic and Law Environmental Authority, KASTLEA, and the Investment Promotions Agency, KADIPA, during the #EndBadGovernance protest. He added that 23 suspects have been detained. He denied that operatives used live ammunition, saying that they only fired tear gas. In Kano, the situation turned violent as protesters embarked on a looting spree which compelled Governor Abba Yusuf to declare a 24-hour curfew with immediate effect. The governor, who announced the curfew while addressing newsmen at Government House, said the action became imperative to ensure full protection of lives and property in the state as hoodlums and thugs hijacked the process. Angry protesters had set ablaze tires in front of Government House to express their displeasure over bad governance. The protesters also pelted security agents stationed in the area with stones, and it took the interventions of security agencies who shot tear gas into the air to disperse the angry protesters. The hoodlums, wielding dangerous weapons, hijacked and took advantage of the protest to loot facilities and properties such as Nigeria Communication Commission (NCC) office located in Audu Bako Secretariat, Kano Printing Press, shops, banks and street lights and foods, among others. Hundreds of residents in Jos and several groups and associations joined the ongoing #End Bad Governance protest in the country. This is in spite of several warnings and pleas by the government and some civil society organizations in Plateau State to citizens to shun the nationwide protest against bad governance. The protesters, who came out as early as 7 a.m., marched through various streets calling for an end to bad governance and prevailing economic hardship in the country. They were led by a former Minister of Sports, Solomon Dalong, and a cleric, Prophet Isa Ebuba, who is the convener of the Initiative for a Better and Brighter Nigeria. Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Nyeso Wike, says security agencies have identified a senator who allegedly sponsored protests in the nation's capital. He disclosed this during a press briefing in Abuja after a security council meeting. Though the minister did not disclose the identity of the senator, he alleged that the lawmaker provided food for the protesters. He further cautioned protesters in the nation's capital to obey the court order and stick to the MKO Abiola Stadium for the protests. According to the minister, security agencies got an intelligence report of persons wanting to hijack the peaceful protest, which is the reason they want protesters in one place. The minister was spotted at the presidential villa in Abuja on Thursday afternoon. Inspector General of Police IGP Kayode Iwetakun says a policeman was murdered while on duty during the #End Bad Governance nationwide protest. At a briefing in Abuja, the police boss said some of his men were also injured by hoodlums who disguised as protesters. Iwetakun said some police stations in the country were razed by rampaging rioters. He lamented that events in major cities were mass uprising and looting, not protests. The #End Bad Governance protest turned violent in Kano, Borno, Yobe and Nasarawa states, among other 32 states of the Federation, as well as the nation's capital, where rampaging hoodlums burned vehicles and looted warehouses in private sectors. Residents of Nigeria's southeast shunned the nationwide protest against economic hardship and insecurity. The protest, which began on Thursday, is built to last until August 10. Enyimba TV observed minimal human and vehicular movement around Enugu metropolis. Many streets, shops, banks and petrol stations did not open for business. Although the popular Ogbete main market, the biggest market in the state, was open, many shops remained shut. The situation is not different in Imo. Everywhere was on lockdown in the capital city. Arinze Ajezu, a resident of Onitsha in Anambra State, told our correspondents that people remained indoors in the state to avoid trouble. Mr. Ajezu, a shop owner at Onitsha Main Market, said he had to return home because he did not see anyone in the market. Like in other states in the southeast, residents of Ebonyi State shunned the nationwide protest. A resident of Abakaliki, Ifeanyi, said although there was no protest, businesses were shut down in the state. You're watching Enyimba TV News. After the short break, the news continues with foreign, business and sports updates. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. Now the news continues. On the foreign scene, a court in Guinea has sentenced former military ruler Moussa Dadis Kamara to 20 years in prison for crimes against humanity. The charges stem from one of the worst massacres in the nation's history, the killing of more than 156 people after troops opened fire at a rally held in September 2009 to demand a return to civil rule. Kamara took power in a coup when longtime President Lansana Conte died in 2008, but he fled the country after surviving an assassination attempt not long after the massacre. He returned from exile in Burkina Faso in September 2022 to face justice, insisting that he was innocent. Kamara was convicted along with 7 of his military commanders, while 4 others were acquitted. The massacre took place when tens of thousands of people had packed a stadium in the capital, Conakry, to press him not to stand in a presidential election. And on business, Chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, Gbenga Adebayo, has stated that more than 30 million phone lines are not properly linked to a national identification number and remain at risk of disconnection. He said these lines are mainly in car trackers, Wi-Fi units, Wi-Fi devices, and point-of-sale machines. This revelation comes on the back of recent chaos caused by the unblocking of lines not connected to their needs. Last weekend, telcos began barring phone lines not linked with their names days before the Nigerian Communications Commission July 31, 2024 deadline. Since February 2024, telcos have implemented a phased disconnection of phone lines in compliance with an NTC directive. At the end of 2023, the regulator asked telcos to disconnect lines that had not been successfully linked with NIN across 3 phases, ending July 31, 2024. And finally, on sports, the Tigers' quest for the back-to-back win at the basket event at the Paris Olympics was cut to size as host nation France defeated Nigeria 7-5, 5-4 scoreline. The Rena Wakama-led ladies were out of depth against the French in front of their home crowd at the Pierre Moret Stadium. Thus, Nigeria failed to build on their impressive opening game where the team defeated Australia. The victory was the team's first win in an Olympic match since Athens 2004, when they defeated South Korea in an inconsequential classification game after crashing out. Nigeria will face Canada in their final group game on Sunday, August 4. With a sports story, we'll wrap up this edition of news on Enyimba TV at this time. But before we go, here is a recap of the top stories. In the news, we told you that Abia residents stayed indoors for #EndBad governance protests as markets, banks and institutions were shut down. IGP puts officer on red alert ahead of second day of protests. And we also brought you a story that resilience, tear gas, looting, curfew as #EndBad governance protests held with boycott in southeast states. That's a package of news for now. Please join us for more updates in our subsequent bulletins. Meanwhile, don't forget to subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Click on the notification bell to receive alerts when new videos are uploaded. Thank you for watching. On behalf of the production team, I am Mary Ihejirika saying do have yourself a wonderful day.